That's a fulsome investigation on January 6th, and it will make clear the hoax.
All right. I want to bring in now former State Department employee, executive director of Foundation for Freedom Online. Mike Benz is back with us. Mike, it's great to have you back on.
Great to be back. Thanks.
First off, I urge anyone out there to watch Maria's interview with Ed Martin. I actually found it very informative. What is your takeaway? Do you think things are moving fast enough? We've got some grand juries formed. I can tell you overwhelmingly what I get is the people are still very frustrated, Mike.
Yes, and I think that's a natural response. Things have been moving at breakneck speed at almost every agency front in the Trump administration, from massive reforms to the State Department laying off 4,000 folks there last month, the closure of USAID, the potential shutdown of the Department of Education, massive reforms across the board. But justice does move more slowly. And this is in part because justice has to ingest all of the evidence from all of the other agencies and then make sure a case is airtight before it's brought. And there are lots of considerations in many of the rogue activities that justice has to be implemented around. When you're talking about the Russiagate affair, we now know that a grand jury is being impaneled. We don't yet have the set of potential defendants in those cases, but that has been widely reported that they are being impaneled. Obviously, that comes down to ingesting the information from not just whistleblowers, but also from the intelligence agencies themselves. We've seen mass disclosures from ODNI. The FBI is still finding documents. We know that these people tried to delete all of the evidence, tried to burn them. A whistleblower brought forth thousands of FBI documents that were supposed to be burned in burn bags, which is how we've gotten these recent FBI releases. But you have the Russiagate affair, you have the January 6th, the elements of the Fedsurrection. You heard Ed Martin refer to the January 6th case. And this is something that is, I think, when Ed Martin does get to the bottom of it, I believe it'll bring the house down. This is something that was lorded over the American people for 4 years, 5 years almost now. And what we know about it already is so damning. And what the Justice Department has to sift through is the underside of the iceberg. We know that the FBI had penetrated all of the different major so-called right-wing militias. We know that DHS had twice as many agents as the FBI. We know that the January 6th pipe bomber case was effectively abandoned by the Justice Department, despite it being the most high-profile, incendiary, explosive element of the January 6th affair for months afterwards. It was this threat of this January 6th pipe bomber that made this a potential mass casualty event. And in the entirety of the Joe Biden Justice Department, they never disclosed a suspect. They never disclosed the age, the race, the gender. All they showed were a set of $300 Nike shoes. I've put forward evidence showing that I believe that they actually blotted out the eyeballs of the January 6th pipe bomber so that when you zoom in on it, the eyes are blurred out. This usually means that the person, if they had a criminal record, or if they had a military record, or if they were a federal officer, their eyes would have been scanned in a database. But now you can't look that up because they blurred the eyes out. But you had this person walking around on foot for 90 minutes in the home turf of the national surveillance state, Capitol Hill in Washington. The cell phone data, this person was texting on their cell phone. The former FBI said that cell phone data was corrupted for the pipe bomber and only the pipe bomber. But then the actual cell phone companies said the data was not corrupted when they sent it to the FBI. All of this stuff has to be dug up, as well as the original footage. For example, the DNC footage for the pipe bomber was reduced to just 1 frame per second. That's the kind of security camera footage used in the 1970s. There's no way that's the original footage. That was doctored. They cut it down to 1 frame rate. They didn't disclose the part of the video of the pipe bomber actually planting the pipe bomb. We know that the Biden administration lied to the Justice Department for an entire year about Kamala Harris's whereabouts, so much so that the Justice Department had to refile grand jury indictments because the Justice Department lied to the judges and the grand juries about Kamala Harris being in the Capitol when actually she was right where the pipe bomb was suspiciously planted. There's so much of this that has to be made public, but it starts with getting the raw source footage. Get the original copies of the security cameras and make that public to the world.
Mike, look, over the last couple of weeks, we've basically learned beyond a shadow of a doubt from the emails, which nobody that's written the emails, from Clapper, Obama, and others, have disputed the legitimacy of these emails that basically said, go find me an alternative assessment, frame President Trump. That wasn't the exact quote, but that's basically what it says, frame Trump. Now with what you're saying about the J6, and we've covered this on this program about the pipe bomber, do you think we'll get to a point where we prove, because I think what you're saying is the pipe bomber was a setup job. It was somebody inside government. It had to have been. They're walking by in and out of this thing, and you got agents smoking cigarettes outside, and it sure seems like they know the pipe bomb's there. Do you think we'll prove that it's a setup job? And that means we would have had our own government try to frame the president of the United States, Donald Trump. We would have had our own government set a pipe bomb outside of political headquarters in Washington, D.C. of both parties. I'll give you the last word on that. Do we get to that point?
Yes. If Ed Martin knows where to look, I believe this can be found. What we know is that the fusion cell in D.C. called the hospitals 3 days before January 6th and told them to stock up on extra blood because there might be a mass casualty event. We know that then acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen convened a special team out of Quantico with shoot-to-kill orders that we're told, with the FBI and special forces folks essentially all around January 6th, staked out 3 days beforehand, and on suspicion of what? They said a, quote, weapon of mass destruction might be placed around the Capitol. Well, that is code for a pipe bomb. That's actually the technical term, a weapon of mass destruction for a pipe bomb. This is what the Michigan, the Wolverine Watchman, if you remember, in October, the FBI set up people with a fake pipe bomb. They got, for the Whitmer Fednapping case, the FBI literally sold pipe bomb parts. And then the head of that investigation, Steve D'Antuono, the guy who was the head of the Detroit field office for the FBI, became the head of the Washington, D.C. field office ahead of January 6th. He was rush promoted. I believe this gets to the military. The military is a big part of this. This final thing is that Mark Milley said to Gina Haspel on November 9th, 2020, just 2 months before January 6th, that a right-wing coup was afoot. We need to do something to stop it. And I believe that this January 6th operation was part of an effort to end Trumpism after Trump and to create a criminal predicate to do that. And I believe it was the same units out of Fort Bragg and Mark Milley that were involved in a lot of the frontline breaches. If you study that frontline breach just before 1 p.m., it was almost all military people. And I believe it goes up to Mark Milley.
Well, look, this is why, Mike, you know, I try to give you as much time as I possibly can as you lay this stuff out. Nobody knows it better than you. You said if Martin knows where to look. My buddy, and I think a guy that you know very well, Darren Beatty with Revolver, he's now inside the DOJ. If anybody's going to know where to look with this pipe bomb stuff, he's going to know, and he's been very quiet through all of this, so hopefully I know he's working on it. Maybe we'll get some answers. But great work, as always, Mike. I'm always fascinated by anything you have to tell us here on the program. Thank you, sir, as usual.
Thanks, Grant.